of all, I loved watching. I loved watching your eyes when you were describing it. And I love this idea of having this like solid home and spiritual center that you can like return to again and again. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, next funny little question. What was the first work of art or picture or anything like that that you remember really looking at as a child? Not just like seeing, but like really being interested in.
As a child, wait. I don't know if this is the first one. Maybe it's not gonna be the first one, but it's on my mind right now. And it is a book. It's not so old. I was not so young. So yeah, it was definitely not the first one. But for some reason it was key, absolutely key in shaping the way I want to see photography and the way I am. I don't know. It was very important. It was Reneke Dijkstra. I don't know how to call it. Like, I don't even know how to pronounce correctly her name.
Perfect. That was perfect.
But yeah, Reneke Dijkstra, her book, like her, how do you call that? Like her largest book, actually. It's like her largest monograph book. It's so amazing. And when I remember when I saw those pictures, especially the ones of the kids on the sea, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. I need to do this. Why didn't I do this? Why this is not mine? Like, so it was like, it was important. So I would say she's a very important influence, even though she was not the first thing, the first artist that I saw. Yeah.
No, but I like that it's the first thing that came to mind when we were asking.
Yeah.
You saw this book. Were you already, learning photography and working to become an artist? No.
For me, becoming an artist and studying photography was like was a thing that happened when I was already an adult. It was like 12 years ago when I started again. So I started studying industrial design here in Colombia. I was happy, it was good, but that was definitely not the thing that I wanted to do. I always wanted to be an artist and to study arts. But being an artist in Colombia is like such a weird privilege that everyone questions it. And for a long time, it was not an option. Yeah. So I worked in design, blah, 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 and then I moved to, and at a point I was like, no, I really need to do this. And I moved to the US to start again. And I study arts and I went to the MFA. So I remember that I saw that book when I was in New York, but I was still working in design. It was a long time ago. It was not even an option to be an artist at that point.
But you always felt it.
I remember that it was very, very important for me. Like it was, it broke like something. It was important.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell us a bit about then that transition, about going to school in the US and why ICP for your MFA felt like the right fit. How did, when something broke inside you, then what did you do? What did you have to do?
Yes. Okay, so the story is weird and I hope not to make it too long, but I remember that on the company that I was working at a consultancy firm, at a huge consultancy firm. And I remember that they were going to pay for my MBA. Actually, I was going to study an MBA. And I remember that I went to Cornell. I was living in Ithaca at that point. And I went to Cornell to see if and I was going to apply to the MBA at Cornell. But every time I would go to the MBA place, I don't know how, like to the, I don't know. Yeah. I would go down the hill and get into the art department, and I would spend like 2 hours there. I was like so in love. But it was not an option. I would not say like no to a lot of money that they were going to pay, so like to help me with blah blah. But at a point, and with Daniel, that is my partner, like we realized like this is not making me happy. I really want to make like to study arts. Photography is the thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I decided to change completely, the way of how things were going to, how things were evolving. And then I started. It was very hard. It was very hard because I resigned to everything. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start again. My CV changed from a 3-page CV, I don't know, to a completely blank page. It was sad, but I started studying and searching and blah blah. And I remember that I found Nayland Blake, that he was the chair of the ICP department of the MFA at ICP. And I immediately felt that I wanted to study with him. At the beginning, I applied to Cornell and to Parsons and to Pratt, I guess. But I decided that I wanted to study with Nayland. He was like such an amazing influence. And so that was it.
Yeah. Well, from everyone here and on Zoom tonight, we are so thankful that you made that tough decision to become an artist, because, you know, this is amazing work and the world would not be as wonderful and complex and interesting without your work. So thank you.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, that is very beautiful. Thank you so much.
So
I don't know if I deserve that, but thanks. Thanks so much.
So as you know, some of us know, grad school's rough, man. I mean, school tests you, but it also forms you in some ways. So was there something that you discovered about yourself and your particular view about the world and art while you were in school at ICP?
Yes, I guess the thing is that I thought I was going to go and study just about photography. I thought I was going to become like the best, like the most amazing artist in photography and very well known. I don't know. But at the end, I realized that photography was like my way of also learning about the things that were important for me personally. And that's one of the things that I love about the medium. That is, yes, most of the questions that I have in my mind are about the medium of photography, but it is a medium that allows me to get closer to things that are very key. So all of my work, I guess the center of my work and the thing that sparks everything in my work are a lot of questions about photography and about identity. So yes, I guess my time in New York and my time in my MFA was a time to get closer to what I am and to my identity and to my culture and to my family and to the things that are important for me. And photography and picture making has been like a very complex and amazing way to learn about those things as well. So yes, I don't know if I'm answering your questions. I'm feeling like I'm going all over the place, but I'm trying.
Not at all. No, these are amazing.
Stop me.
Yeah,
Stop
Marjorie's like, everyone's given the double thumbs up. So I think it's great. I'm going to put some images on the screen because these are from your MFA thesis show. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, and I have to say, I put this one up first because I am like totally in love with it. I love the angle and all the detail that I can kind of get lost in. You know, the longer I looked at this, the more detail was there for me and the more questions I had about what was going on, and I wanted to engage with it more and more and more. And so I love, you know, hearing you say that, you know, what you found in that program was that your work comes from this well of questions. So fantastic. So do you want to say anything about like just this MFA thesis show, or should we just kind of scroll through kind of slowly and let everyone take a look?
What can you say about this? Like, no, I love that you put that image to start, because that's one, like the one before, because that's one of my favorite images, and like I love it and it's important for me. No, and I guess that the images from that show are just for people to understand like what was in my mind, I guess I was very interested in narration. I was trying to get closer to the idea of, to the narrative and towards the idea of narrating ourselves, and not reading and about ourselves, or not seeing what others would picture from, but narrating ourselves. Like that was important for me at the time. So I remember that I was actually narrating while at the same time questioning like the nature of narration, like what is part of the, what is and what is not part of the narrative, who narrates and who is not, and who reads, who perceives, who is looking. So that was important. And I guess I was pushing, no, I was actually trying to push like documentary conventions into the realm of pictorial depictions. So yeah, I was doing that. I was very interested in scenes. Like, I guess the way I was making photographs was more interested in like a cinematic thing where the scenes were happening, was where narration was like the center. Yeah, I would, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of like narrating ourselves, you know, because what stories do you tell yourself in your own mind about your own life, and how might those be slightly different if there's like an outside narrator narrating that same scene?
Hi.
Yeah,
I dropped the water. Hold
it's
on.
a really
Sorry.
juicy point of thought to build on. And yeah,
Yes.
they absolutely are narrative. Like I want to begin the story, get to this point, and then finish the story in my mind too.
Yes, I guess I dropped my glass of water, but it's okay. Yes, and I guess narration, like that idea of narrate, like that question around narration and the opportunity of examining the concepts from different angles has been present not only on this body of work, but also on the body of work that was like also on the rest of my process. So yes, I continue making questions around that. Like it's still something that is very interesting for me.
Yeah. Yeah, really great. Well, that leads us into this body of work that was seen at Assembly. And, you know, for those of you out there who didn't get to see the show, including Cristina.
I know, that is so sad.
Yeah. You know, it's always different seeing it as a JPEG on the screen than it is in real life in the gallery. And it looked beautiful in the gallery. It was just so, you know, visually attractive and physically attractive and engaging and amazing. But can you, you know, give us a brief summary of how this show came together for the space?
Okay, let me think. For the space. So, so I think that so I don't work when I usually don't work like in like as projects, like as bodies of work that are composed by many pieces, blah, blah. I work like, I mean, each of the pieces is like a step, and I move forward step by step, and that is just the way I work. And occasionally when a book comes, like, I don't know, when someone wants to publish my work or someone is interested in showing, so we use the space and the moment in time to tell like the thing that is more important for me at the moment, and we compose with the things that we have on hand. So I think that that's the way that I work most of the times, and that's the way this happened, this show as well. So I was at that moment I was working on these photographs. I was working on this, like at the same time I was working on those photographic weavings that you can see over there. You can see one on the center, and it was becoming important to think about those pieces all together, like one on the side of the other. So we started to play with the space, and yes, and that's how it came to life.
Yeah. So just so I'm clear and everyone else out there is, your work, while you do give kind of series titles in some way, they aren't discrete series like this is the beginning, this is the end, and this is all the work in between. Instead, you see each work is kind of like a progression into the next piece, and
Yes.
the next piece,
Yes.
and the next piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They become bodies of work because of the books and because of the exhibitions, because of those moments of showing to other one, like to a person. But that's not the way I imagine those. Like, I'm working on one photograph, then I'm working on one blah blah blah. And they of course they're completely intertwined, all of them, and there are progressions of the one that was before, blah blah blah. But they're not like projects where I'm thinking about a lot of pieces that come together and build something that's larger. That happens. Yeah, that happens normally later.
Excellent. So then, with this installation of work, generally, what was like the span of time that's referenced here? Is it like, 4 years of work, 5 years of work?
I would say like, let me see, like 2 years of work, more or less.
That's awesome.
Yes.
You're prolific. Yeah.
No, you know what? I'm not prolific. I wish I were. I wish I were. But I had a baby.
Oh.
And then the pandemic happened. And I was really needing to make work. And I was desperate to make more work. So when I got here to Colombia, and a little bit before, like, I was starting to make. And yeah, I was pushing a lot of work that I was needing to see alive.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple, like, I have some pieces, amazing pieces that are here that I couldn't send because I wasn't able to finish. Most of the weavings are here, actually. But
all right, Ashlyn and Shane, new exhibition in a year or so, I guess. I love that phrase that you just said, that there were some things that you just like needed to see come to life. That's so amazing. I love the thought that these things are in your head and they're kind of getting finessed and perfected, and then you just really want to like make it out in the world. Because I think a lot of people think that photo is more documentary, that artists are just kind of like walking around in the world and they see that and they take a picture and they're done. But that's not how a lot of artists approach photography. It's like a generative thing. You have to make it. Yeah.
Yes. And especially in my practice, maybe also because I am Colombian, like the way I was, I don't know what I went. No, I'm gonna go back. Like, the photography that I used to see when I was growing up was only documentary. Like the photographic history and the way we know photography is through a documentary practice, especially because we had so many amazing stories to tell, some amazing ones and some awful ones, but we really needed to tell the stories, that we focused on the stories, not on the descriptive methods. I don't know how can I put it. And for me, I needed, when I started to learn like deeply photography, I really needed to move away from that documentary tradition. Of course, I brought things with me because there's some language of documentary that I think it's important because I am from Colombia and because of the things that I'm interested in. But I definitely think that in my work, there has to be space for the real, for the non-real, for the political, for the fantastic, for fiction, non-fiction. I think that mix is absolutely important for me. It is definitely a space for creation more than a space for, I don't know, like, for creation. Let's leave it there.
So talking about creation, and, you know, let there be light and everything. Your exhibition is titled As If It Were the Sun, which,
Yeah.
by the way, is just like the most fantastic title ever. I'm going to hire you to title my shows in the future. But can you tell everyone where this title came from and what it means to you?
Actually, the credit is not mine. Like that, so that phrase, as if it were the sun, is like is an expression that I use very often, very, very often, especially to make reference to the US. Like, because I lived for 10 years until last year. I lived for 10 years in the US. My process was like working in Latin America, and then moving to the US to show and to talk about the work and to and to do many other things with the work. I was impressed with this idea that in America, I'm sorry everyone, but I feel that America really thinks like people in America think that America is the sun. And I'm like, no, there's so much. There is so much more than this. Like, and there are different centers of knowledge, and there are so many languages, and there's so many other things that are more that if we don't put into the conversation becomes boring and poor, I think. Yeah. So yes, so I use that expression a lot. So, and one day talking with Ashlyn about the titling, I said this and she was like, that's the title. And I was like, what? Really? But yes, and it made a lot of sense because with my work, I'm trying to do many things. Like there's too many intentions, but one thing that is very present is that I'm trying to move away from that hegemonic view that we have been imposed so hardly. Like, this is how we should look like. This is what beauty is. This is what, like, ugh. And when you don't come from from that privileged center, when you are from the periphery, you have to narrate yourself. You have to stand in a stronger position and actually make the conversation more complex. And that is kind of what my work intends. I don't know if I'm able to do it, but at least that is my intention.
Oh, I think you're definitely succeeding. And I love thinking about this title, I mean, for the reasons you just mentioned, but also as this symbol of decentering, you know,
Exactly.
decentering hierarchy, centering questions rather than statements. But also, when we spoke before, one thing that struck me is how you are also decentering the studio in many ways. You talked to me about how you wanted to move your studio outside or to like break down the idea of a typical photo studio. So what was it about that tradition that wasn't quite right for your practice? And, you know, why do it the way you're doing it, which I love, but I just want to hear more about.
Yes. Where should I start? The thing is that when I started to do this kind of photographs, like recently, but when I started to work more or less in these photographs that you guys are seeing, like the scene was not as important as the character. So I was more interested on the character, and I was going back to make a lot of questions related to portraiture. I was going back again, like to ideas of portraiture. I wanted to explore like performance in a way that was interesting. I wanted to break down like that line between who is making the picture and who is like the subject to that idea of authorship. I wanted to blur. So I was playing with a lot of things, and it made absolute sense to go to the photographic studio, like to go and study at the photographic studio. But of course, when I went to those, like to the text of a photographic studio, and when I started to experience what it meant, it was something that was not making sense for me as a Colombian person of color, woman, artist. It was something that was like an idea very connected to, I don't know, very connected to a completely different group of people.
Yeah.
So I started to make questions around it. And then this thing again happened, like this idea came back, like, no, the photographic studio in my practice and in a place like Colombia, I don't mean to say that it needs to be that way, but at least for me, it made more sense to bring the studio with me. In a way, acknowledging that there's too much that it, like, actually, when I was talking about those centers of knowledge, that can be a place, that can be like so many things, that can be a person, but I felt that I really needed to move myself and adjust to those centers, not the other way around. Bringing, like, yeah, it was completely weird and it didn't make sense to bring those to my studio and like try to So yeah, so I started to play with the studio, and for me the studio is still this dynamic space where I can like introduce like variables in a very interesting way, but I feel that I need to go out and bring it with me and make it dynamic, and it allows me for how do you say that, like equation, like, no, it allows me for forms that are completely different each time, and that I cannot predict. I'm just like dancing. It's like a performance that at the end becomes a photograph, and that for me is a lot more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because you just said something so juicy. I have to follow the thread. You know, you talked about how you're blurring authorship and you want these to be performative in a lot of ways, but who is performing here? And you describe yourself as dancing while you're making these photos. And so that, like, that concept of the interdisciplinary photograph is so strong in this work. And so much of your work has just like this physical nature, as if it were a sculpture, you know, and we'll talk about the weavings in a second, but even the photos themselves feel sculptural in a lot of ways. And in that way, they invite the viewer to interact physically with them as if they were sculptures in a space rather than photos on the wall. And I know that's something you want to cultivate in your photography. Is that correct?
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yes. Yes, like, I guess the only thing that I would add to that, because yes, that's something that I'm trying to do, is, I don't know, I always wanted, like, I'm in love with photography. Like, yes, I love photography. I've been obsessed with it and with its theory, practice, everything since a long time ago. But I remember that there was one thing that I didn't had, that was that need of touching, like that desire of touch that I actually have with a painting. Those, and that, like, that space for actually like relating with a piece from a place that was more from the body, like from a place that would allow you to be here, present in this second, like wanting to interact from the body. Like, that was something that I didn't have. Like, photography, I love photography, but the relationship with it, and I remember telling this to you, is a lot from here. Like, it is a very intellectual medium. Like, you relate with a photograph from your mind, from your memory, from and it is an index that actually is calling for you to complete it with your memory, with your own stories, blah, blah. And that for me is beautiful and it's amazing. But I definitely wanted to complete that with the desire of touch and with the desire of something that is a lot more physical, something that is from I don't know, from the body. Like, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the physical and materiality is getting into the work in a way that is changing definitely my moods and what is interesting for me. And yeah, it's important.
Yeah. I mean, I remember walking into the gallery and seeing this work that's on the screen right now. And like, there are so many elements that speak to the tactile in this photo for me, but also that made me want to like return the favor in some ways, like then dive in, and I want to separate those leaves and like see more of who's behind it, and figure out who did those beautiful little carvings that are like barely visible at the top right. I hope everyone who's on the Zoom is seeing that right now. But like it just invites this back and forth in a way. And I know that the position of the viewer and the necessity of the viewer kind of completing the work or charging the work, which is the phrase you used with me before, is something that's essential for you. So how, how did you arrive at that? When did that start coming in or feeding into your work?
I think that it was something that's something that has been present since always, like since a long time ago. I can't recall when exactly, but it was very at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that originated because I remember that I was kind of impressed with the idea that we have been I'm gonna say we as Latin American people in this moment, like Latin American people, we have learned about who we are and about how we look from images that other people made from us, like and we were for many time very exposed like to the cameras and to the pencils and notes and writings and texts of others. We were not like the I don't know, we were not the narrators. We were never writing about ourselves or making images about ourselves, especially making images. Like we were never the ones with the camera. Like we were always like for people to see us, for people to consume us. And that for me has been critical in the way I make the work. I think it's important. And for me, especially more and more like recently, I've been trying to move away from the periphery. Like I've been trying to get into the center of the conversation in a more active way. And that implies that you're not here for people to look at you so welcoming. Like I'm not so interested in that position anymore. I think it's more interesting to actually get into the conversation and be more participate in a more active way. And that is what the photographs are trying to do. They're opening questions, they're like evidencing contradictions, but they're also open for you to complete. And that back and forth, I think, is key for the work to actually make something in the viewer. Yes. All of my answers are like an hour long. I'm sorry.
No, they're great. They're great. This is kind of I'm going to say it. I'm going to ask you an interesting question. One of the things that kind of I just am dying to ask after talking to you a little bit and hearing more about your practice and more about your thoughts. We encounter your work in galleries, in museums, and, just because that's the nature of our field, the nature of our world. But if you had an ideal space or location for these works, where would that be? Like if you could put them anywhere in the world for people to encounter, where would that be?
I have two answers for this thing. So of course, the first thing that comes to mind is like Viterbo, like I would love, and I've been trying to do that recently, and it's like give back like the piece to the person that is the subject, because I think that is at the end, I made this like for me and for that person. It was like such a weird moment that we shared that is never gonna be repeated, and that is so special for me, that I guess that person should have the work.
Yeah.
And that would be the ideal space location. I guess that I should try to move towards that direction. And also in the more functional way, I would I guess that my work belongs to a book form, to the book form. I love to see it on exhibitions, but for me, I would be very happy to see it as a yeah, in the book form and with the people that I was mentioning.
Yeah. I'm part of my brain is telling me I'm taking it too far, but I love the idea that one of your key artistic moments was encountering this Renneke Dijkstra book, because in a book form, the viewer is absolutely in charge, right? You get to decide when to turn the pages, you decide what you care about or what you want to look more closely at. You can lift it up, pull it back, do all sorts of things for it. So I love that idea, and how, you are still trying to create that kind of physical engagement with the viewer, in work that goes on the wall. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk about the weavings. So I'm just going to kind of slowly scroll through so people can see things and not go too fast. But maybe as I think it's the next one. There we go. Can you just tell us a little bit about these? How are they physically made? Let's start with that.
Okay. I hate that the images of them are so it's very difficult to see them on the screen, no?
Yeah, everybody come see them in person. Go make an appointment at assembly, go see them in person. Okay.
Yes. But okay, but so when I have to go back a bit. At a point, it became important for me to explore materials in a different way. When I was in the US, I was already making these questions and I was already uncomfortable with the material, with the white, pristine, beautiful, expensive paper, but it started to be very difficult to work with here in Colombia. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I started to explore different materials. So that on one side, and on the other side, since a while ago, weaving has become a space for me to get in touch with my ideas in a different way, and to actually stay more present. And I don't know, it opened a space for me to be silent and to think and to meditate while I'm making. So this weavings that you're seeing on the screen are photographs that I process, and then I print on cardboard, on used cardboard. And there's a lot of reasons why cardboard, but anyway, that I print on unused cardboard that is tired material that I bring back into life, that I reuse, and it's material that I transform with weaving. I know that when we think about weaving, we think about materials that are completely different, but for me, this is kind of my idea of how a weaving works. So I start putting material together and composing and spending time with it. So there is a process that is at the beginning, that is cutting, that is kind of violent, that is transform and moves away from the functional, moves away from the signifiers. And then I bring this back with photography, with the photograph that I print on top, and then I give love to this thing while weaving, and a completely new thing comes to life again, because I start to occupy territory in the same way you build a geography, kind of. Sometimes I think that these are like maps in my mind. And because I can't, so it's always very related to territory. It's always very related to identity, and so yes.
They're amazing, and they bring us back to that so many key things about your practice. You're decentering the photographic element of this in a lot of ways. You're really like privileging these physical elements, weaving together things as if weaving together narratives. I feel like it's all like coming together in this very interesting way here. And then of course, there's all of us in the gallery that just want to touch it too and interact with it and learn more about it. Really, really fascinating. I want to do one last thing before we open it up for questions, because I do want to leave about 10 minutes for us to do questions from the audience. I loved seeing this the last time we spoke, and I think everyone should see it. It just speaks to your practice and how you think and how you're working through things. It's your sketchbook. So do you mind showing us just a peek at your sketchbook?
I was telling you, I'm starting a new one. So it's kind of sad because I have one page.
Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing so that it gets big on everyone's screen. There we go.
So my sketchbook. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you this, which is Elena's drawing, my baby's drawing.
Oh,
that's in my
good.
sketchbook. But then this would be my sketchbook. This is what I'm working on right now.
That's amazing. So, does this sketchbook kind of represent all different points in the idea, like initial idea, working it out more? Is that what's happening?
I don't know if I understand your question. Can you repeat it? Can you say that?
At what point in your idea do you reach for your sketchbook?
No, you know what? Actually, this sketchbook is not so big because I always have it in my mochila, like in my bag. So it's anytime. Like sometimes I see something on the street that I'm like, oh, yeah, that should become that's something. So I draw it because if I don't, I forget it. Sometimes it's just like a line of something of a book that I read or whatever. And then I don't really I don't know how it works, but these all like the things I read, the things I write, the images I see and things on the street become like these soup of things that at some point become a photograph. And yes, when I for example, I'm gonna go back to sketchbook. Like there's a photograph that I want to do because okay, so here recently I saw a motorcycle that I was like pulling a donkey on this. Where was this? And I was like, no, this is so amazing. So I draw it. I don't know. I'm not saying that is going to be a photograph, but
right.
that was important for me to think about so many things because this happened on a city. It was not like on a rural.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, yeah, so that's, and then this is a structure that has been rounding in my head for some reasons. And this is a photograph that I want to do. Sometime I will make it. So yeah, I don't know.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I got so excited when I first saw it. I was like, this is amazing. Because again, like people think when they hear photograph, I think we have a tendency to think documentary photograph, just taken. And your interdisciplinary practice and how you are constructing these, how you're needing to see these photos alive and then bringing them to life is so, well wrapped up in that. So I think we're going to open it up for some questions now. So Marjorie's going to take control back.
Yes, thank you both. That was amazing. Yeah, so as Lisa said, we have about 10 minutes for questions. Feel free to use the raise your hand function and I can unmute you. Lisa did such an amazing job with her questions that I feel like I also have no questions because you're an amazing interviewer. That was so much fun.
Yes, thank you.
I did nothing. It's all you.
Questions.
Oh, there's one.
Let's see. Okay. Would Cristina mind naming a couple of contemporary photographers she finds interesting?
Mm. Okay, let me see. Of course. Let me see. She finds it interesting. I would say, no, I already mentioned one, but no, why I can't? Let me think. Okay, Justine Kurland. She was. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's Justine Kurland. She was one of my mentors at ICP, and it's easy to mention her, but the truth is she's absolutely brilliant. So I have to mention her. Bill Gaskins, he's also like an amazing photographer that I want to reference. Stanley Woloku Wanambwa, amazing. And then no, and you know what? The thing is that I don't want to mention the ones that are more renowned. Like I think that there's amazing people that are like emergent artists that are doing such amazing things, like Martha Naranjo Sandoval, like yeah, friends of mine like Emil. No, I don't know. There's a lot of friends that are doing amazing things. So I would make a list of friends and then it's funny, but I guess.
That was great. Okay, I think you're gonna like this question, Christina. So someone asked, there's so many incredible and beautiful details with the subjects in your photos, especially when they're doing things with their hands or their fingers, with making things, moving things, opening things, etc. So they wonder if you can talk about the relationship between these moments in your pictures and your process with your own hands and how you were making the weavings and concept of drawing. Fun, right? Okay, take it away.
Whoa, what a question. What a question. Like I think I never thought about that before. But what I think is that with my photographs, especially with my recent photographs, I've been putting a lot of attention in the body, in the physical body, on the human figure, not only on the hands, but the hands are so expressive that of course they call the attention in many moments. But for me, what's interesting about this is that I've been thinking a lot about how we create identity and where identity is located, kind of. And for me, it's interesting that identity, I don't know, like this places where identity rests, places that are visible and non-visible. And I think that hands and the expression of places of our bodies, and those are spaces where we actually find so many things about what our identity is revealing or concealing. And so yes, so I would say that, yeah, I would leave it there.
Amazing. Okay, question about repetition. How does repetition figure into your work? The weavings seem to kind of poetically pound a theme. That was kind of poetically phrased. And then
Yes.
the photographs themselves repeat the idea of weaving over and over. So how does that idea of repetition how do you think about that?
Yes. So one, I would say that with the photographs and when making like the central elements of a photograph, like you are asked as the viewer, like to leave the space. Like when I was talking about the index, like this is something that we know, like a photograph at the end is an index that is calling you to go, like go to that place, like see this, but go to that place and complete the photograph. I don't know if I'm being clear, but when you see a picture, like you kind of leave this place to be able to complete it. I don't know. And at a point, I was needing to actually not leave. I was needing to stay here. I was needing to be more present. And I felt that the only way that I can get into that is through repetition, through a process that is more meditative. I don't know if it makes sense. And and I wanted to find a way to make a photograph that was interesting, and to make a photographic thing that was interesting, where you would be able to stay on the surface and on the thing, you know, not leaving with it, like in the same way that you would do with the rest of the photograph. So I think that I'm using repetition in that way. Yes.
Beautiful. Can you speak more about the use of cardboard as a material and what inspired you to do so?
Yes. Okay, so where should I start this? I wanted to use, so as I was telling you before, at a point, using the white, pristine, clean, expensive material that we would use for making photographs was not helping me. I felt that it was completely disconnected to my reality, and to the way, and to the artists that I know here and that are related to my world. So I started to explore different materials, and the cardboard that we know, like the cardboard that we find in the boxes, like Amazon boxes or banana boxes, fruit boxes, is a material that is very interesting for me because it travels the same way that my work travels, because it serves a purpose. That it is a material that is made for labor, and it is a material where you could find a lot of metaphors that are that could be very related to how we as Latin American people have been portrayed and treated. So that material started to open a lot of options, and options for me. I felt that it made absolute sense. It was a material that was tired, that was not so clean, it was interesting for me. It was not expensive. It was, people discards, like people puts away that material without giving it attention. And for me, it was like a challenge to bring it back and to use it in a more interesting way, transforming the space, transforming the territory in a way. So yeah.
Okay, I don't want to go too over time, but maybe 5 more minutes for like 1 or 2 more questions. One is maybe quick. Someone wants to know if you foresee your work evolving beyond photography and weavings.
Maybe, but I'm not so interested at this point. Like, I don't know. Is that I really have too many questions related to photography that I want to explore. So I don't know if that would make sense, or if that's gonna happen. I don't know.
Hard to predict, I guess.
Yes.
So someone else asked, some of the images look like they were found and some look constructed. Is there a conscious effort to keep it balanced between the two? I think that's a great question.
I think that idea of found and constructed, those two concepts have to be part of every image that I drew. Like, it's not that some are found or some are intending to look like found and some constructed. I think that tension between those two like two ways of making work is important for me. Like, and I remember that before, like a long time ago, I would ask when I was making the picture that this could be found, right? Yes. Okay. And this could be constructed. Okay. So I'm standing on the place where I want to be standing. I think that I really need that tension for my work to make sense, at least. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much to the both of you again for such an amazingly engaging conversation. Thank you to everyone who attended tonight. And I you know, if you have more questions, if anything occurs to you, you know where to find us. Please sign up for our newsletter on our website, assembly.art. You can follow us on social media, Assembly Projects. And our next exhibition, I just wanted to plug, is opening very soon, next Friday, September 9th. We are really excited to feature the US debut of French photographer Vasantha Yoganathan's decade-long project called A Myth of Two Souls, which is a really beautiful photographic retelling of the Ramayana. So we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you so much again, Lisa and Cristina. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Ciao.